When we start putting kids in solitary day in and day out, that is detrimental to their mental health. It's counterproductive. And then we take away their education, their access to education. It's a recipe for disaster. One of the best things that we can do is educate a youth.
You don't know how you're going to respond to somebody spitting in your face until somebody spits in your face. And you can train somebody for 6 days or 6 years, but until they have that experience, it's not real. You can prepare for it, but in that moment, that's when you're going to know, is this the right career for me?
I remember it was my first time in jail, so I really didn't know what to do. So the water was cold, there was a toilet in my room, I didn't know what to do.
Some kids are born into safety. Others are born into survival. Emma was one of the latter. And by the time we met her, she had been locked up 8 times. Here's the story of how trauma, addiction, and chaos can stack up until the only way out feels like a jail cell. Welcome to Smart Justice.
You want to hear the whole story? Boom, this what happened. I was born, I was a little baby. And then I was living with my mom and my dad for good 2 months. My mom and my dad was doing drugs.
Emma isn't her real name. We're protecting her identity. It all started before she could even walk.
My mom would just come in and out the house like drunk, high, different boyfriends, this and that, yada yada. So then I got taken away from my family. So I got put with my aunt, and then my aunt was basically she can't take care of me how she needs to because there's too much put at risk of jeopardy and stuff like that. So then they gave me to my grandma at 18 months old. So I was with my grandma, and I remember as a kid, it was normal, but there'd just be a lot of fighting. They'd just be fighting all the time, and I'd just be okay, I don't really know what to do. I'm a kid, so I'm gonna stay in the kid's place. But this one time, my grandma, she was trying to get me or something like that. And I remember my mom, she kicked her in the back, and she went flying on the stairs, broke her back. So then that's why when stuff we wasn't struggling or nothing, but we was struggling, kinda, you know what I'm saying?
Shuffled between relatives, thrown into a household where violence was routine and survival was the only rule. Her brother was the only one who made her feel like she mattered.
My brother's he'd have to take care of me all the time. And I really started getting close to him. I do normal stuff as a kid, but having someone to talk to, it wasn't always easy. I didn't have no one to sit there and listen to me. So my brother was the only person that would listen to me. My brother went to jail, and just been downhill since then.
School became unbearable, and crowds triggered her anxiety.
They basically let me leave 10 minutes before the class ended, so I could make it to my next class before all the people started coming out. Cause I had a really bad thing with people. If it's a lot of people, I can't do it. I don't know. It just it messes with me.
By 12 years old, she was getting high with her brother at hotel parties.
My brother, he started falling heavily into selling drugs and the streets and stuff like that. So I don't know, I just wanted to be like him, I guess, and I was 12. So then I remember it was my 12th birthday. It was all in a hotel party, I guess. And I started doing drugs with him and stuff. And then I remember I was gone a whole binge that whole week. And then 3 days later, on April 25th, I was sitting there, and then something happened. I can't really remember what happened, because all I remember is my mom, she got mad or something like that. The police got called. She went in the backyard. She locked herself in this shed. And then I was okay. So mind you, I'm trying to figure out how I'm finna get out the house, because I'm not trying to go to jail. I'm high. I'm not trying to go to jail. I'm only 13, 12. I don't want to go to jail, man. So I'm all right, I'm finna just run out the back door. So I get my stuff, I take off running out the back door. I go down the street to our neighbor's house, and then I'm sitting there, and then they basically like, they all looking for me, and like, I'm not going, I'm not coming out the house, I don't care, I'm not coming. And then like, I got a text on my phone, and it was like my brother just got locked up. And I was thinking like, oh, this ain't nothing, he just gonna get out a couple days. So, cause it's just normal, like that was a cycle. When it found my mom, I was like, I might as well just face it. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna just let my mom go. I didn't go to jail this time, but like they put me in a mental hospital. I got out, and then I started making new friends, and my brother wasn't there, so I had to find somebody. I started getting more and more drugs.
By 14, she wasn't just using, she was spiraling. And then came the day that changed everything.
I woke up one day, and then my friend, he's like, I need you to come pick me. Well, his mom called me. He was like, I need you to come pick him up because he finna go to jail. Like if you don't pick him up. So I'm like, okay. So I get in my friend's car. We going to pick him up, and we get there, and like, dude, like he like off the walls, like he going through it, like mouth jittering and stuff. Like he messing with his teeth. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then I'm like, bro, come on, let's just go. He's arguing with his stepdad. I'm like, no, we can't do this. We can't do this. So then, like basically, I get him out the house. He's screaming in my face and stuff. I'm like, all right, whatever. So then I get back to my crib with him, and then somebody made me mad, like really mad. So like I punched all the TVs in my house, and I broke them. And then I was like, I'm not finna go to jail. I don't care, I'm not finna go to jail. So I'm taking him out the back door, cause like we got cameras in the front. So I'm trying to take him out the back door, put him in the trunk so I can hide him. I'm just keep saying this over and over in my mind. I'm screaming. My homeboys, they waking up, they just sitting there, they're like, you're going to jail. I'm like, I'm not going to jail. Finally, me and my friends, we finally just go to sleep. I wake up, you know, I ain't had nothing I wasn't fiending, like I'm not no fiend, but like I need some, cause like, you know what I'm saying? So I was stealing. I stole some pills out of my grandma's purse. My grandma woke up, she called me. She walking down the hallway, she pulled me. Like not on no aggressive stuff, but she was trying to get them on my hand. I must have got mad, like I got real mad, like. And I picked up the scissors, and I opened them, like where it's like this. And I punched him 2 times, and she started bleeding everywhere. And then I'm like, I'm not finna go to jail, bro. I can't go to jail. I can't go to jail, man. And like as soon as I go to open the front door, I hear a knock on the window. I'm like, oh my God. I'm thinking like it's just like somebody, I don't know who I thought it was. But I open a little blind, it's the police. I'm like, oh Lord. And I'm not the type of person, like if the police there, I'm not even gonna run. Like there ain't no point, cause then they still gonna get caught. So I just opened the door and I was like, I stabbed her. And then they put me in handcuffs.
When she picked up those scissors, she wasn't just fighting her grandmother. She was fighting everything life had thrown at her. And for the first time, she found herself locked in a juvenile facility.
I remember the first day, I'm sitting there, I'm just crying. Like, mind you, I ain't cried in like a year since my brother got locked. I'm just crying, like real life boohoo crying. Like, I don't know why it was so deep to me, but like, and now I look at it like, I don't know what I was crying for. Like, I should be mad at the world. I'm just sitting here crying, like crying's gonna get me somewhere. It ain't get me nowhere. And it's my first time in jail, so I really didn't know what to do. So like, the water was cold. There was a toilet in my room. I didn't know what to do. Like, but I wasn't scared or nothing. Like, there was nothing to be scared for really. But I remember like, I would just like wake up in the middle of the night and be like, no, I'm not doing this. And then like, I just got tired of being there. So I told the guard I was gonna kill myself. And then they sent me to another mental hospital. So I'm at the mental hospital. And then they're like, okay, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. So they let me go after a couple of days. I go to another place, Pulaski County. I was like, this was like way better than where I was. Like, we got to wear extra clothes, and it was nice, cause like jail's not nice, but like the food was low key decent and everything. It must have been like a few days before I had court. I called my grandma. I don't know why I called her, and like I wouldn't say she just forgave me, but like we just started talking again. Like it'd just be little stuff. I just ask her how her day was, and like every couple of days, and then we'd talk some more. And then finally, like, she was just basically like, "Are you ready to come home?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm ready to come home." So I was in jail for like 15 days, my first ever time. But mind you, I had third-degree battery charge. It's a felony. So I was like, I don't think I'm going home. Like, this is my first ever charge, so I don't really know how jail works. I was like, I'm not going home. I'm never gonna see daylight again.
Released on house arrest, she tried to piece herself together. But the streets, the drugs, the pain, they were still waiting for her.
I get out, they put me on house arrest for 9 days. So I'm sitting there, and I'm doing good on house arrest for like a few weeks. And I'm with my brother's girlfriend at this time. I'm sitting there at her house one day, and then, you know, she smokes weed. I tried to smoke her, she wasn't going. So then I texted my friend, and he was like, basically like, "I'll come get you." So I was like, okay. He came and got me. I was like about to turn 15 at this time. So I'm really like, I'm not lost. I wouldn't say I'm lost in life, but I was just so hurt. Like, I don't know what it was, but I was just hurt. Like real life hurt. Like I just needed some time to find myself. But I ain't had no time to find myself. So I started hanging out with my homeboy, and we started using like drugs, like not really bad drugs or anything, just like Xanax, stuff like that. So we're taking Xanax, stuff like that, drinking, and then they was like, "You want to go to Star City?" Cause that's where my I wouldn't say my boyfriend, but like my friend, like that's where he lived. So I was like, yeah. So then they was like, "We need some money though." So like, mind you, like I'm off that stuff. So like, I'm thinking like, I don't know how I'm finna get no money. Like I'm a kid. Like, so I'm just walking my house. I'm like, "Nina, I need to wear something offline." So I get a card, type in the numbers, put the cash app. So I cash app, and I'm cashing like $100. So we got there, and then like my ankle monitor beeping the whole time. I try to cut it off and everything. It's not budging, like it's not coming off. So I'm like, all right, we just gotta thug it out. So I get to my friend's house in Star City, and I'm sitting there, and like someone just told me to like look over my shoulder. I don't know what it was, but I looked over my shoulder, and there was like 2 police cars pulling in. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I'm finna go to jail. And then there's just like drugs everywhere, all over the place.
Another arrest, another night in a cell, another reminder that freedom wasn't just about getting out. It was about finding a way forward. By the time she was 15, Emma had overdosed on fentanyl-laced pills she once swore she'd never touch. And even in her darkest hours, Emma started to realize the life she was chasing wasn't the life that she wanted. She's not out of the woods, but she's fighting.
I think my biggest problem was I wanted to be just like my brother. Like whatever he did, I wanted to do. I don't care what it was. I was going to be like my brother at this point in time. I was going to be like him. I didn't care. I had my mind made up to the fullest. He was going to be in jail. I was going to be in jail. He didn't care about our family. I wasn't going to care about our family. I was going to do whatever he did. I really think it's all about my support system right now. Basically, like, it's going good. I'm finna get my GED, and then I'm gonna go to college. I just had to find myself. I just had to find myself.
Support for Smart Justice is provided by Restore Hope, dedicated to empowering communities by offering the coordination and tools needed to support the vulnerable. Learn how you can bring these tools to your community at restorehope.io.
Brooke Digby is Arkansas's juvenile ombudsman. Her job is to make sure kids locked up by the state aren't forgotten and aren't mistreated. She says giving kids real support while they're in custody can make all the difference.
I monitor all of the juvenile prisons in Arkansas and try to make sure that kids are safe when they're in DYS custody. I monitor the contract that DYS has with the provider inside of the facility. I try to ensure that they're going to school, that they're getting mental health services, that they're meeting their educational needs. My office is often complaint central. I take complaints from youth, parents, staff, members of the court, really anyone.
Brooke's been around at-risk youth her whole life. As a teenager, she spent time at a treatment center where her mom worked.
Most of my teenage life, went out to that facility, attended proms at that facility, did talent shows at that facility. So I've always had an interest with at-risk youth. I think I wanted a way to give back.
Digby's seen the rise in serious crimes by kids, including more murder charges.
From where I started 6.5 years ago to now, I feel like I've certainly seen a rise in homicide cases. I see more and more kids being charged with capital murder, murder in the first degree. I see younger kids being charged with serious offenses. It's sad. Lots of co-defendants, lots of kids being pulled in with older youth. I think a lot of it goes back to basic needs not being met. Gangs are like Vegas. We don't really talk about it. You're not supposed to talk about gangs, affiliations, whatever you want to call it. But a lot of kids, once I get to know them, they will open up, let me know they are affiliated in some kind of way. And oftentimes they get affiliated so that they can have a family, belong to something, have protection. And it's not because they don't have a family, but their mom or dad, grandmother, whoever they're living with, may be working or maybe on disability. For whatever reason is, there's a struggle in the house. Someone's not making ends meet, or there's not enough food on the table. They're being bullied at school. They don't have nice shoes. They don't have nice clothes. They get affiliated and they start doing illegal things to make ends meet or feel a part of something. Is it right? Absolutely not. But it's survival for these kids. And I had a kid look at me and say, what would you do if you didn't have food in the house, Miss Brooke? What would you do if, your little brother wasn't eating? And so while it's awful and they are committing crimes, I get how they can get in some of these situations. And once they are in, it's really hard to get out.
One of Digby's biggest concerns is solitary confinement.
What kids refer to as 23-in-1s, 23 hours inside of a room all day, an hour out. During that hour out, you're expected to shower, make your phone call, exercise, do whatever you need to do during that time. It's awful. When we start putting kids in solitary day in and day out, that is detrimental to their mental health. It's counterproductive. And then we take away their education, their access to education. It's a recipe for disaster. One of the best things that we can do is educate a youth. And what I have found is that kids actually get further and further behind when they are placed in juvenile detention facilities because they don't have access to education like they would if they were out in the community, out on an ankle monitor, in a less restrictive environment. Sure, there are times where kids need to be locked up, placed in detention because we have serious offenders in Arkansas. But I think if we're going to use detention on a long-term basis, there's ways that we could possibly improve that situation. I think there's a lot of staffing issues in the juvenile detention centers. I feel like there's a lot of pressure on the juvenile detention centers that are open right now to take on a lot of youth. because there is a need for a lot of beds. However, they may not always be in ratio. And under the Prison Rape Elimination Act, you are supposed to have one staff for every 8 youth during daytime hours. And I don't always see that when I enter facilities. Sometimes I've gone into facilities and I've only seen 2 staff working with approximately 50 kids being held inside of a JDC. That is not only dangerous for those staff, but dangerous for those kids should a fight break out or anything occur. And I think this may be why youth are spending more time in what I would consider solitary confinement, lockdown, whatever you want to call it, to try to keep kids safe, because you can't keep them out on units, out on pods, if you don't have enough staff to actually man those units or pods. And so that may be their solution to try to address that concern.
Quick distinction. Juvenile prisons are meant to be more long-term. Juvenile detention centers are meant to be short-term. But Digby says kids often sit at detention centers for months, just waiting for an evaluation, waiting for a hearing. She says some kids sit in detention center for up to a year, not because they're dangerous, but because the paperwork or crime lab results are stuck in limbo.
There's a backup right now at the state hospital, and it's hard to get kids in and out quickly for psychological evaluations and assessments in terms of Act 3s. And so kids might be delayed in detention for quite some time, waiting on those evaluations to come back and their documentation to come back, anywhere from 9 months to a year. So sometimes that can create extra time for a kid to sit in detention, waiting on something like that. And then if you factor in also state crime lab getting ballistics back or certain pieces of evidence, that can also create delays and potentially cause a kid to be in detention for quite some time.
Every extra day behind bars cuts a little deeper into their future. She says that research shows that the shorter a kid stays locked up, the better their chances.
I do believe there is a correlation between length of stay and successful outcomes, just based on research and chats with other stakeholders in other states. I think with Michael Crump coming in and taking over, he's a numbers guy, he's a data guy. He's done a really good job of tracking kids in DYS and trying to get them in, get them out. But I'm not sure where that sweet spot is in terms of time. We have a lot of very serious offenders coming to DYS. And so it's hard to say what that number should look like.
When kids get out, they're connected to community programs. But a big roadblock? Transportation. If families can't get them to the counseling classes or court, the whole plan falls apart. Digby points to places like Pulaski, Benton, and Washington counties, where detention centers are thinking differently.
They've made some really positive changes over the last couple of years. They've recently brought in-house therapists. I think that's a great idea. Benton County does the same thing. Fayetteville, same thing. That's Washington County. That really helps kids who are in crisis, kids who may be experiencing suicidal ideation in an acute state. They're able to do assessments and make recommendations to the court for needs. And so that's super helpful. I've seen where the therapist from Pulaski County will come and testify in various hearings, which makes and breaks cases. I think in more times than not, it's making those cases and helping those youth out, give them a shot back in the juvenile justice system and helping to advocate for their needs. And so I think if we are going to house juveniles in detention, there is a good and better way to do it. And if we can make it more therapeutic and have a focus more on therapeutic interventions, then it would be a more productive use of our time. So they're not just sitting.
She says it plainly. We have to intervene earlier.
I do think the schools have an advantage in terms of they're on the front lines. They can kind of see the kids that are coming in or see the kids that aren't making it to school. Oftentimes that's a telltale sign in itself, is who's not showing up to school. Why are they not coming to school? Truancy is a big warning sign, figuring out what's going on in the home somewhere. And we've got to figure out funding to pour into that once we start identifying those kids, because I'm sure the schools can come up with 9 billion kids right now that probably need help. But then where are we going to turn to for that help? I've been a part of a lot of groups that have talked about a lot of wonderful things that we could do for children, but it always comes back to money and funding, and there's never enough of it.
Another priority, training police to interact with youth differently. She says if we treat every outburst like a threat, we escalate the situation and we lose them.
A lot of our juveniles are afraid of police. They could be brought up that way, and it could be based off of their own interactions with police. I've personally watched video of terrible interactions with police officers, so I would totally understand why they would be afraid of police, just based off of what I've personally seen and witnessed. What I've personally seen and witnessed inside of some of the facilities, just watching them talk to juveniles. I think a lot of these officers are used to interacting with adults, and you can't communicate and interact with kids the same way that you can with adults. Everything starts with trust and rapport with kids, and you don't get that right off the bat with them. You get too close in their personal space, you start putting hands on a kid, it's immediate shutdown. It's that fight, flight, or freeze, and you're not sure which one they're going to do. A lot of times it's probably going to be fight or flight. That's why you see a lot of runners or a lot of them throwing punches. But they're threatened in some kind of way. And a lot of the kids that they're interacting with come from hard places, come from trauma. And that's a common response for those types of kids. And so I think there is a lack of understanding and a need to improve that type of training across the state so that there's not misunderstandings on both sides.
Support for this podcast is provided by the nonprofit Restore Hope and the 100 Families Initiative, moving families from crisis to career through innovative case management software. Communities can develop strategies to best support those in need in their area and track outcome data in real time to see what's working. Learn more at restorehope.io.
Charles Parkins has spent nearly 30 years in juvenile justice. He's seen it all, from the front lines to running entire systems across the country. Today, he leads the Arkansas Juvenile Assessment and Treatment Center.
That's fantastic. I love working with the kids, coming up with new ideas, coming up with fun things for them to do, working on treatment, refining systems. So
Arkansas, he says, is different. The system's small enough to know the kids by name, big enough to make a real difference.
One of the coolest things, hands down, about Arkansas is the system knows their kids, like, by name. So, when something is happening and you say, hey, I've got an issue with Johnny, they know who Johnny is. And, they know who Johnny's family is. And, there's ways to connect those services to help. It doesn't always work, right? Because everybody has to be in that same place to move something forward. But just knowing who those people are makes such a huge difference. And the possibilities of having a more individualized approach to therapeutic services and understanding family dynamics is a real possibility in a system like Arkansas.
But helping youth isn't always easy. Employee turnover is high. Staff come in wanting to help, but the work is tough. When they leave, it's not just a loss of manpower. It's another broken relationship for the kids who trusted them.
This is not an easy job. I've had to testify before legislative bodies on this very issue. It is geared towards people who are entering the system. People that come into this field because they want to make, they're not going to be millionaires doing this work, right? People who come into the system usually are looking to help. They just want to help. Maybe they went through something when they were younger, or they feel somehow connected, and they want to reconnect with that, maybe to heal old wounds or whatever the case may be. But they feel drawn to help, and it can be hard, right, when you're working with a group of individuals who don't want help necessarily in that moment, or don't know they need it. And so, what I would tell people all the time is, you don't know how you're going to respond to somebody spitting in your face until somebody spits in your face. And you can train somebody for 6 days or 6 years, but until they have that experience, it's not real. You can prepare for it, but in that moment, that's when you're going to know, is this the right career for me? And so I think, especially post-COVID, turnover in this field, in law enforcement, and so many other places has just changed dynamically. If a staff member decides they're going to go do something else, there's a loss for the kids that are here who have, related to or continued to rely on. And so, it's not just that we potentially lose a staff, but all the kids that have gotten connected with that staff now potentially lose somebody else in their life who's no longer there to support them. Here, kids stay for a longer period of time, so we have a better opportunity to form relationships, to kind of, build trust, so that we can have a real impact on their lives. So recidivism, we're talking about, kids who leave and then come back into the system. It's kind of complicated, but we do see, unfortunately, probably 20% or so of kids that come back. When you're talking about detention, that number could be much higher, because those are kids that are often arrested, awaiting the court process. They go back home, and then they come back in. Some of them are coming back in for violating the terms of probation, not necessarily for committing new offenses. So, kids who struggle to follow rules then have more rules imposed on them while they're on probation, making it that much more difficult to follow those rules. And the consequence is often much harsher when you're on probation. If you're not on probation and you skip school, then you're skipping school. If you're on probation, you skip school, you could potentially go to jail for that because you're violating the terms of your probation.
Probation is supposed to be a second chance, but without transportation, without support, without someone helping you to show up, it's a trap too many kids fall into.
Over the years, there's been a lot more services in place to help prevent that, and a lot more of an understanding. I can remember years ago where we would see kids who were 13 years old being locked back up for failing to appear in court. Well, how does a 13-year-old get to court if their parents don't take them? So, that's huge. We would see, especially in like South Florida, and years ago, we would see girls who were arrested for prostitution, but they weren't old enough to consent to even have sex, but they're getting arrested for prostitution. There's been such a shift and change as I think the system has understood, what seems so obvious now, and put some things in place. But certainly, there's a real struggle for an individual to be, one, motivated to follow probation or go to court or do the things that they're supposed to be doing. But two, sometimes just the ability. We hear people all the time of, I can't get my, car working so that I can go get groceries or take my kid to school. And then that potentially leads to somebody who is, truant from school, who might be on probation. And, that can have a cumulative effect. Oftentimes when you go to court, one of the things that you'll hear a judge say is, you're hanging around with the wrong people. And as a result of that, I'm going to lock you up in a place where I think all the wrong people should be. Right? So we know that peer influence on kids is significant. And we talk about kids who come in who are, substance abuse users. When you lock up a substance abuse user and introduce them to 15 new drug dealers, are you helping them? So in some ways, when we incarcerate, we could potentially do more harm than good. We potentially, exponentially create a bigger problem for individuals. And so now that they go back home, maybe they do have more coping skills to deal with individual behaviors, but that has to outweigh the negative peer influences, the new social dynamics, not to mention whatever dynamics exist at home, with family, with friends, with neighborhoods. So, it's really hard to quantify that.
But prevention can sometimes be hard to measure because it's hard to know what didn't happen.
That's where it gets really hard and tricky. One, because, we live in a world where when we do something, we want to measure it. We want to see if it's successful. If it is, we want to replicate it. We want to look for that solution. Intervention or prevention services, rather, that's really difficult, because how do we know that the prevention that's being applied is the reason why Johnny is not being locked up? And so it's hard to quantify that. And as a result, many, throughout the country, many programs that are put in place that are prevention services don't stay funded long enough to really figure out, is that the why, right? Is that the solution?
Parkins says real change takes more than locking kids up. It takes a village, families, communities, support.
I mean, that's the reality of it. If the restorative justice model, where the community and the offender are working together to, restore something, is really the model that can work. In large jurisdictions, it's hard because there's so many other pieces in place. We started looking at services for kids who were first-time offenders in Florida. So kids would get arrested, they would be brought into a juvenile assessment center, and at the same time we would do a questionnaire to talk about, what are your family needs? Do you have, you have trouble paying your electric bill? Because the first time touching the system, usually families are a little bit more, in tune with how do we fix this, right? There's a sense of urgency there, and tapping into that, and then using that information as like for geomapping. So if I know that more families in this area are having difficulty accessing these services, then working with community partners to see how do we shift resources to that community, because we're seeing that cluster of individuals ending up touching a juvenile justice system.
Sometimes we can't help but focus on the failure. But behind the scenes, success is happening every day, often quietly.
Most kids who get arrested will touch the system, they'll go to court, and they'll never come back again. So one of the hardest things about working in this field, but also kind of reassuring in the background, is we see the repeat offenders, right? We see the kids who come in and they leave and then they come back, and it's repeating. What we don't see is those kids who come in, they touch the system, you have an impact on their life, and then they never come back again. Right? They go on to be successful, they go on to college, they do all these wonderful things. We never hear about that. We don't know that they've done awesome things with their lives. What we do see is those kids who come back often, who need more services, who are higher needs kids. And I think that has a pretty significant impact on whether or not individuals working in this field feel like they're accomplishing something. When you see the same person coming back over and over again, it doesn't feel like you're being successful as a professional. because you just don't see the success stories. Every once in a while, you might run into them at the store or out in the community, and then you can hear about that. But, that doesn't happen often. But even more so, the kids that just go out and then they have families and they just, right, they're plumbers or roofers or bankers or whatever they end up being, and neighbors essentially is what you end up with. I mean, that to me is really cool, that we can have that kind of impact on somebody and then never know it. 80 or 70% of the kids are never coming back into the system, which is fantastic to know that there's so many success stories out there that we don't hear about. We work in a field where our success is incredibly private and our failures are incredibly public.
At the end of the day, Parkins says this isn't just about crime. It's not a law enforcement problem. It's a social problem.
It's not a criminal justice problem. It's not a law enforcement problem. This is a social issue that we have to figure out more supportive ways of managing. I don't know that new beds or more beds is often the answer, because it's only throwing one solution at a problem. And the problem, the solution is then locking more people up. I mean, if there's more services on the front end, if there's more options for kids, for families, then maybe you don't need more beds.
And if we want real change, we have to manage it with care, community, and support.
Smart Justice is a production of Restore Hope, a software and services organization providing proven community-driven approaches, leading to better outcomes for at-risk families. Executive Director of Restore Hope is Paul Chapman, with Associate Directors Karen Phillips and Sarah Littleton. Visit smartjustice.org for more coverage on justice system-related issues. There you can also sign up for our weekly newsletter so you never miss the latest headlines. And please subscribe to this channel and leave us a rating and review.